Well, good morning, folks. It's Gunner here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about gun season, in honor of the 9-day gun season coming up here this weekend in Wisconsin. All my fellow Wisconsinites, I'm sure you're getting super excited. You're getting pumped up. But firstly, I want to thank every single one of you guys for the support on my bow buck kill video. That was one of the most amazing hunts that I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing. I've had some awesome hunts that didn't end up in a kill, but just for that whole scenario, me making that video about that massive opportunity there showing up on Halloween with all of the rain, and then making that gutsy decision to get in nice and early into that bedding area with the cover of the rain and the wind, and having an amazing sit with 5 different bucks, and being able to harvest one is it's next level stuff, right? It's one of those hunts that you will never forget, and having it all documented and on camera makes it even better, because I still go back and watch it and just smile because it was just that much fun. But getting into gun season here, there's kind of a love-hate relationship, for me at least, when it comes to gun hunting. But that kind of all boils down to just the fact that bow hunting has become my true love, and the intimacy of bow hunting, forcing yourself to get close. A lot of times within 35 yards, you have to get that deer within 35 yards, or else you're never going to get a shot, right? At least for me, right? Everybody's got their own confidence levels and whatnot, but I've just seen too much go wrong when you're dealing with long shots like that. But the whole love-hate relationship is purely just because you almost build relationships with a lot of these deer, especially if you're targeting just one or a handful, and you're going after them, and you maybe have some encounters, but they're just out of range. You have those interactions with those deer, and you almost build that connection, and it can be hard sometimes when you're dealing with a lot of guys that haven't stepped foot in the woods all year, coming out, and now you're looking at 250 yard ability to shoot, and these guys come in, and maybe they run into one of your target deer, and all of a sudden he's dead at 250 yards, and they didn't have that kind of experience or that relationship with that deer. Maybe they didn't appreciate it as much as you thought they should have. Whatever it is, that's just kind of how I view it, But at the same time, that's how I started hunting. I started with a gun, and that's what made me become passionate about hunting, right? So there's good and bad to all of it, but in the grand scheme of things, it's hunting still, so I love it, right? But a few strategies that I like to implement when I'm gun hunting, especially for the 9-day, is the ability to be able to see very intrusive areas from a non-intrusive location, right? Where our range is extended when we're using a rifle. I use a 270 with a Redfield scope up top, so it's nothing crazy. It's got the over-unders, because I've had a lot of situations where it's foggy or it's snowy, and that scope is fogging up or getting snow and damp on it. But the ability to see into some of these more intrusive areas. Basically what my setup is going to look like is I'm going to be sitting in a homemade box blind that we put in a fairly difficult location. It's on a steep side hill, and it's actually overlooking my shoot stand where I killed my bow buck. And what that area is, it's just bedding across the entire hillside, and we've done TSI in there. So we've got regeneration coming up all through there. And the whole strategy behind being in that area is when you're dealing with gun season and the post-rut time period, a lot of these bucks are not necessarily running all day long. They're now getting back into the kind of their normal habits and rituals, and they're bedding up for most of the day now, right? They're resting. They've been running for 3 weeks straight, just hard. And so they need a break, and they're starting to shift that focus back onto food sources and back onto their bedding priority and staying safe. So I always, especially if I'm sitting all day during gun season, which I plan to, I'm sitting over bedding areas, because that is the best chance of you running into a deer at any time of the day, right? You can have them coming back into bed off of the ag fields or off of the food sources early in the morning, bedding up, browsing around midday. There's your shot opportunity. or in the evening when they're leaving those food sources if the weather's right and transitioning to those food sources. So basically the location that I'm in, I have the best of all worlds, right? I have that bedding. So in the morning hours, those deer are gravitating back to those bedding areas. In the midday hours, when those deer are getting up and browsing around and feeding, I can still see that bedding area. So any of the TSI work that we've done on there that those deer are taking advantage of, I have shot opportunity at that time. And then in the evening hours, them gravitating to the food sources that are going to be behind me. I have it all set up perfectly. So, you know, if there is a good deer in the area, in theory, I should get a shot, right? Doesn't always work out that way because, you know, at the end of the day, it is Wisconsin, it is hunting, it's not killing, right? It's not as easy as, you know, some people make it out to be. But one of the other advantages when it comes to gun season is we can be a little bit more lackadaisical as far as our wind goes, right? Especially being in a box blind like I am, we can be a little bit less intense about our scent control. Not that you should be, but you can, because a lot of the times our shot opportunities are going to be 100, 150, 200 yards, right? They're not going to be right in our lap as they would be with a bow, and they have to be, you know, inside 35 yards. That's very close to get to a live deer. And, you know, their nose is their top sense of defense. And so, you know, when you're trying to beat that nose, you have to be on your A game as far as your scent control. When you're bow hunting. But gun hunting, it's a little bit different story. You have a little bit more breathing room. You have a little bit more distance that these deer aren't necessarily right on top of you. Granted, there could be some situations where maybe you're sitting in a bow stand. You know, you're dealing with a lot of trails nice and close, and that is one of the exceptions. But as far as my setup, I don't have to be nearly as anal about my scent control process when I'm dealing with, you know, hunting in the gun season. And one of the final things that I want to talk about when it comes to gun hunting is going to be, you know, paying attention to where your pressure is at. And if you own land or you've been hunting the same land for multiple years, you kind of probably have an idea of, you know, where there's some other hunters set up. So if you can, you know, take advantage of that over the years and kind of build that in your memory bank and understand, okay, there's a guy probably going to be coming down here. Maybe it's a northwest wind, and you understand that, okay, anything downwind to him is probably going to escape this way. This is their exit route. You know, if he blows deer, how are they going to move through here? Understanding where the other hunters in your area, not just for safety, but at the end of the day, just to, you know, take advantage of where there might be an opportunity that presents itself, because, you know, everybody knows people get antsy when it comes to the gun season. You know, you're dealing with guys driving, you're dealing with guys that are impatient walking around bumping deer. You're seeing a lot of areas that haven't been touched all year long. You know, we're dealing with over 500,000 gun hunters and not even close to that when it comes to archery. A lot of these areas that are now seeing pressure during the gun season haven't seen pressure all year. So they're moving deer around, and if you can play it smart and you cannot overpressure your land throughout that bow season, which I know you guys haven't. You haven't been overpressuring your land because you're smart about that stuff. If you cannot overpressure your land, and when a lot of these gun hunters come in here and get antsy and start getting up and moving midday, and they end up bumping a buck, he could run right to you because there hasn't been any disturbance on your property. You have good bedding cover. You're playing the wind smart, and he's never going to get you because your setup is dynamite. So pay attention to a few of those things, apply them this weekend and moving forward, because the gun season is a massive opportunity to, you know, kill a big buck that you've never seen before. When you get into those post-rut stages, a lot of those deer, if they're not starting to focus on their own safety and the food source movements yet, they're cruising a long distance. They're showing up on properties they've never been to before, looking for that last doe. Personally, I've seen 3 or 4 brand new mature bucks in the last 4 days. And that's strictly because they're on the move and they're looking for that last possible doe. And if they do happen to stick around throughout gun season, I'm anticipating maybe getting a shot, but definitely somebody seeing them. So pay attention to that. It's a massive opportunity to put a really good deer on the ground if you're paying attention to some of these tips that I talked about here today. Being patient, getting set up in a good location where you're going to have all day activity, set up over some of those more intrusive areas that you no longer have to go all the way into because you're extending your range using a rifle, and you can still have the same action, the same ability to kill a big deer, but you're just doing it a lot more safe.